everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It is June 7th, and we have a very special guest today. Our first Friday of June, our monthly live stream, and we have Marco BUCCI here today. You say hi, Marco. Hey, it's great to have you. For those of you that don't know, we have had Marco over the last couple of months creating a new course for us, and it's just finished now, and we're releasing it this weekend, right, Nick?
No, it's actually live right now.
Oh, all right, right on. It's live now,
I literally just made it live.
and we thought it would be great to get Marco on today and talk about the course, talk about Marco, talk about all things fun and cool and artistic and all that great stuff. So, we're coming at you from two parts of North America. What's that? What's that, Marco?
Of course, we've been chatting for 45 minutes. Just now, Zoom is starting to hiccup on me.
That's all right. It'll be okay. We'll be fine.
So I missed most of the intro. I'm assuming you were just insulting me for 45 seconds.
I was. Yep. I was talking about how horrible of a person you are, and we're just so happy to have you.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here with you, Aaron, and Nick, and Dustin, and Preacher Art Teacher crew. So thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Right away, Aaron, I got a question for you.
Sure.
I have a question that perhaps only a handful of people in the world can answer, and you are one of those people.
Oh, uh-oh. Not too much pressure here.
Who drew this?
That looks like... Let me see the number. Let me see the chart. It could be Bruce Johnson or Tony DeRosa. Maybe Brad Kuha. It's not Glenn Keane, and it's not me. So That's for sure. And looking at the chart, that's definitely not a Glenn Keane chart. I'm thinking it might be Tony DeRosa or Bruce Johnson. I'm not sure.
Now, what made you so confident it's not Glenn's?
I was looking at the chart and the style. I'm not positive that it's not Glenn, but I don't think it's Glenn's. And it doesn't look like his numbering.
Okay. The story behind that is on our wedding day, my wife got me a gift.
Yeah.
And I opened it up and there it is, an animation drawing of the beast.
Wow.
And which is one of the prized pieces of original art that I own.
Right.
And she got it at actually a fair discount because there was no artist's name on it.
Oh, okay.
And the Disney auction people could not verify the artist.
Yeah.
So I looked at it and I had it narrowed down. I mean, obviously I'm familiar with the names who animated it. And I don't know. I thought maybe it was Glenn, but maybe not.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't think it's Glenn, but it could be. Like I said, there was. Trying to remember everybody that was on the Beast unit. There was myself, Glenn, Bruce Johnson, Tony DeRosa, I think Brad Kuha. There were 6 of us all together. I can't remember everyone's name, but yeah. So it kind of narrows it down there. I'm not quite sure who. But that's pretty cool find though. It's definitely one of the animators from the movie, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah. And the Zoom hiccups will stop, hopefully.
Yeah, I know. We're getting them on this end, too. Nick, really quick, do you want to go over any housekeeping before we get started?
Yeah, so we've got a couple of things going on here, and then you guys can start drawing. One is Marco's course is available now at creatureartteacher.com, and you can pick that up at creatureartteacher.com/Marco. That'll take you right to his course. That's a little shortcut URL. It's about a 10.5-hour course. It's got 10 videos. He takes you through 3 paintings. He's going to talk a lot about it, but he takes you through lectures on his sort of his thought process, and he does traditional watercolor, traditional acrylic, and he also does digital painting as well.
I love it.
We've also got 2 big new products over at Creature Art Teacher since we've had our last public stream. Aaron has finished rough character animation on Snow Bear, and so now we are shifting into the post-production phase, and we needed to raise some funds for that because we've got to pay composers and Foley artists and sound mixers and everything. So we've created the Aaron Blaze Animation Mega Bundle, which includes all of Aaron's courses. That's $500 worth of courses. You can get that for $49.99 if you go to creatureartteacher.com. And we've also got literally the deal of a lifetime. We've got a lifetime membership available now to creatureartteacher.com. There's only 500 of those being made available, and they're already about half sold out. That graphic's a little out of date.
Yeah.
But we are just about at the halfway mark. So if you go to creatureartteacher.com, you can learn more about both of those.
Yeah, we've got some really incredible stuff happening on the post end of things on Snow Bear. We have Mark Mancina, who's a Grammy-nominated or Grammy-winning composer. He did the score for Tarzan and Brother Bear and Moana, Sea Beast, Twister. He's a great composer. So we've got him on, and we're also doing all of our sound and mixing at Skywalker. So all of that costs money. So now's where the rubber hits the road. We gotta fork out the bucks to get this thing done. So, but that's that aside.
Get one of those memberships.
Yeah, there you go. That would be great. Let's talk about Marco BUCCI and everything Marco BUCCI.
Yeah, well,
Why don't you, for everyone that doesn't know, why don't you give a little rundown on your history and who you are and what you do and all that?
yeah, sure. Well, it's cool to be here talking to you, Aaron, especially because I actually started my whole journey wanting to be an animator. This goes back to I saw, although ironically it was CG. 1995 Toy Story comes out.
Wow.
And I wanted to be a CG animator because I had decided by that point, I was a teenager at that point, but I decided that I couldn't draw because I was not one of the talented kids in school. So I thought, hey, this new computer CG stuff, I don't need to draw, which turned out to be wrong. But at the time, I was very convinced that, hey, if I just learned software, I could forego the drawing part, circumvent that, and become a CG animator. So I was, again, this is 95, 96, right? No one in high school was doing this stuff.
Right.
I was like the only person doing this. So I learned software packages at the time, like consumer software packages. And fast forward, I started learning that, hey, CG animation benefits from drawing just as much as anything else.
Yeah.
And it was around that time that I learned that you could learn how to draw. I've told this story on my own YouTube page, so I'll fast forward a little bit. But I ran into a life drawing studio at that time, just up the street from where I was going to film school. Mm-hmm. I couldn't get into animation school, so I did get into a film school. And I started life drawing, and that changed my life because I started learning like how to draw gestures and how to break down form and turn form in your imagination and all that good stuff, lighting, shading, all the principles of good drawing. And that is what propelled me to discover painting when I got into like lighting and stuff. And that kind of derailed my animation a bit because I learned that I loved painting maybe even more than animating.
Right.
So I pursued that path for the next 20 years. And in that time, I've worked for all kinds of studios and clients. I'm from Toronto, Canada, so I've worked at almost every studio in Toronto at the time anyway. There's more now, but I worked on TV shows, films, video games, and then I went freelance doing a lot of books and also games and films and TV. It kind of circles the gamut there. Films, games, TV are the kind of the main ones, and books as well. And then I started teaching on YouTube in 2008.
Wow, that goes back a ways. That's cool.
Yeah, I'm one of definitely not the first artist, but one of the first wave of artists on YouTube around 2007, 2008, I think. And, decided to take that very seriously a few years after that, maybe 2015 or 16. I started taking the YouTube stuff very seriously. And I enjoy teaching today equally as much as I enjoy making art. So that's been a cool trajectory for me.
Yeah, I know. I definitely agree with you on that. That was a big discovery for me when I switched over into the teaching realm of things. I was surprised at how much I really, enjoy it, and that whole side of things. It's really great. I was wondering if you could talk a little more about. You say you weren't one of the quote talented guys in high school. I don't know if I necessarily believe that, but I do know that you've talked a lot about learning to draw and learning to paint and learning all these different things, and how it really, what I've gathered from your videos when I've watched them is how great you are at really breaking down the process of seeing and translating and getting onto the page. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about your whole learning process and how that came to be. I know it's a big question, but I find it
Yeah.
really fascinating.
Well, thanks. I appreciate the compliment. And just for viewers, for some reason, guys, my Zoom is just starting to go crazy. So I apologize if I like seem distant for some reason. I'm just trying to catch up with what you're saying, Aaron.
Sure.
Hopefully, it fixes itself. Because I kind of started from just literally zero. I had no drawing knowledge coming in, and because I kind of resigned myself to a non-drawer growing up. Now, I always wanted to be an artist. I was always creative. I always did music and writing and stuff like that. So my creative brain was always there. I just was born that way, I guess, to have that kind of mindset. I want to create things. That was there since I can remember. I was never good at creating things though, but I wanted to.
Right.
So I thought drawing was just one of those things that I couldn't do because I couldn't do it when I was young.
Right.
So the thing that I use in my teaching today is because I had to learn everything from a base of zero. I remember the breakthroughs that I had because they were so visceral when I had them.
Yeah.
Like I remember the day that my first drawing teacher, he was only my official teacher for like 12 weeks. So that was the class length that he offered at the time. But I remember like the day where he sat me down and he's like, day one, this is a gesture drawing. You know, what you're doing is we were live drawing from the model, right? And he was like, what you're trying to do is draw like finished lines right away.
Right.
And he's like, I mean, maybe you can do that, but that's actually not the way you should approach a drawing because you have to see a base level of action and weight and pose. And like before you start getting to the final touches, you need to know what the pose is doing. Like where is the weight being held? And all these things that have really nothing to do with the final contour,
Right.
but have everything to do with the life and the energy of the pose. And my teacher, his name is Nick Kalislian. He was an animator. I think still is, but he worked in the Toronto scene as an animator, and he knew a lot of Disney guys. I think one of his mentors was Charlie Bonifacio,
Oh, no kidding. I love
Yeah.
Charlie. Yeah.
and so he worked with Charlie in Toronto at the time, and he would tell me all these ways that animators draw, and like that's how I discovered Glenn Keane is through Nick's work, and like he's like, look how Glenn would draw the beast, for example, or draw
Sure.
whatever. And it just all these lines that really have nothing to do with the final contour. So I was able to remember, and I guess this is what my teaching is based on. I was able to remember those aha moments, and I've had so many of them in 20 years, right? From gesture to form to lighting and shading and color, and now these days I find myself circling back even to animation again. And that's what I base my lectures on. I always I open up a little brainstorming document and I try and like just type until I find like the thing that is the aha, and then I'll build the lesson around that.
Yeah, and that's what, Nick and I both, Nick was mentioning as he was reviewing the course, just how great your instruction is and the way you break things down and all that. And I just find that really impressive. And yeah, I think the students are going to really love it. I think it's a great course.
You guys want to switch
thanks,
over to
man.
the drawing and do a little drawing and talking? And
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
just while we take some questions. Sorry, that's all.
Yeah. The I'll talk about the course a little bit.
Oh,
The
please.
course, yeah. While we go ahead here. The course goes over many different aspects of the fundamentals, but applying them to finished stuff. The course is the way from fundamentals to finished art. So finished illustration. So you're taking core concepts like gesture drawing, say, or like lighting. We learn a little bit about the foundations of them, but
Sure.
right away we go into application. So it does have both, but it's kind of a fast track from like the core foundations you need to know, and like, hey, here's how to use them in the paintings that I'm doing here.
Oh,
And
that's
there's
great.
three paintings. There's a watercolor painting first, then it goes into an acrylic painting and a digital painting, and they all are real time. You see every brush stroke, not sped up, and I try my best to relay what I'm doing back to the fundamentals as best I can.
Well, that's
So I
one
guess,
of the things I really love also is the fact that you're doing traditional mediums as well. We try to get people that do that as much as possible. I just think, being able to painting, understanding a medium, painting traditionally, drawing traditionally, it really informs your digital world and it vice versa too. Because one of the biggest things I discovered when I jumped over to doing things digitally about 15 years ago was how much it loosened me up and how much it enabled me to loosen up in my traditional work as well. So the two really do inform each other. It's really amazing.
oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I'm a person of a certain age. I'm in my 40s. So when I started in 2000, yeah, 99, 2000, it was, I mean, Photoshop existed and digital existed, but it was still yet to take hold of the mainstream, or it was in the process of doing that. So I learned traditional media first. I learned oil paint and watercolor and gouache and all the
Yeah.
traditional mediums. I had all of them, and it turned out that my favorites were actually watercolor and oil. So two very
Yeah.
different mediums, right? You got an
Right.
opaque one and you got a transparent one. But I agree, Aaron, and I'm just going to start sketching a little green monster character here while I go. But
Yeah.
the thing that I love about traditional so much is like just the interaction with the pigment.
Yeah.
And instead of the act of mixing a color instead of picking a color is really a profound difference because when you mix a color, you have to understand how colors work on the color wheel. You're like, well, in your head, you're like, well, I'm looking for a cool red. Well, how do I get a cool red? Do I mix cadmium red with ultramarine blue? That'll get you a cooler red, but it'll be grayer because
Right.
cad red is a warm red. So you'll get a gray cool red. What if you mix ultramarine blue with alizarin crimson? Well, now you're going to get like a very purpley red, or you're going to get a more vibrant cool red. And if you don't, or I should say, doing that kind of thinking is very different than a digital color picker. Because with a digital color picker, you're spoiled, right? You have all the colors at your disposal.
You do.
Yeah, at any
Exactly.
time. Um, which is awesome. Like I love that. Digital is my most used medium today. But I really think that learning color for me was completely based on my traditional experience. Um, and now even now, I'm like sometimes I'll want certain colors, but instead of picking them like on the color picker here, I'll just mix them on the canvas. Like I don't know if you can see my color picker, but I've got this like red. Here's my cool red, right? It's like a
Yeah.
violety red. If I put that on the character, like I kind of know what the mix is going to give me. It's going to give me like this grayish green sort of thing
Yeah.
if I press slightly enough. So like I like mixing colors on the canvas digitally too, and a lot of that is completely driven by traditional stuff. Um, yeah, so in the course, I love to break up the traditional media and talk about that just the same way I talk about digital, and you
Yep.
get to see the process and the no undo, no
Yeah.
undos.
One of the
That's the part.
things, one of the things I thought that was pretty cool that you said in the course, Marco, was how you can go from any color to any other color as long as you get there through the grays.
Yep.
Like,
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a
yeah,
great
yeah.
that's a great way of explaining it. Exactly.
yeah, like you can make any two colors work together as long as you have those mid ranges connecting them. And it was really cool.
Yeah, I'll,
Yeah.
I'll do a little. Yeah, thanks, guys. That's the again. That discovery was an aha moment for me. That driven by traditional media. Like for example, while Aaron, you guys can all watch Aaron draw there while I do a little color swatch. You've got like a let's say like a red here, right? What's the opposite of red? It's green. So I'll just pick something near the opposite, and I'll put this down, something like this, right? Well, those are very different colors, and if you just start using those saturated in your painting, it's going to look terrible because they have nothing to do with each other. They're opposites, right?
Right.
Complementary colors are great, but the thing about painting is if you have colors that are so different, you need to travel between them to kind of earn the saturation. That's how I think about it.
That's a
If you
great way
just
of
go
putting
straight,
it. Yeah.
yeah, if you just go straight saturated, it looks like a candy store, which might be what you want. If you're designing maybe a theme park, maybe that's exactly what you want, right? But if you want a subtle painting that looks like nature or something that is based on nature, you want to manage your transition there. So basically, the easiest way to do that, as I'm painting this color swatch, is to simply get grayer with one hue, in this case the red, and then pop out. You can treat it like a warp zone into the greens now and get more saturated out toward the green. And if you use, and you can do that with any two colors. It doesn't matter what colors.
Yeah. It's
It works
magic.
best though. Sorry, Aaron.
It's magic. Sorry, I didn't mean to
Yeah,
interrupt.
yeah. It's if you use those intermediary colors in your painting, you suddenly have a sophisticated palette because look at all those colors I've just got. I can use those colors in my painting to make the painting feel like the colors are related to each other because this is how colors are literally related through the gray. Now, I learned that traditionally because if you mix two complementary colors with traditional pigments, what do you get? You get gray.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. Exactly.
The pigments cancel each other and they go to the middle. That is something that is very difficult to learn digitally because digital color mixtures work differently. But when you work traditionally, it's amazing because you can have like an ultramarine blue and a red and maybe white, and you can have a whole palette of colors just with that. And you know, if you want your mixture to be a little warmer, just make sure there's more cad red in the mix. If you want your mix to be cooler, just make sure there's a bit more ultramarine.
And it does another thing too, where it just harmonizes everything. Because I get a lot of questions a lot of times about, you know, it's more than just how do I know to use the right color. It's a lot of, you know, the colors I'm using don't look right, and when you're doing this, it harmonizes everything together. It just pulls it. It's really great. It's just and the way you explain it is really great. You know, going from being able to travel through the grays that's something I've never thought of in that term. I think that's awesome.
I should probably set this up for people because people just said, "Oh, I just realized they're both arting at the same time." Yes. So Aaron is drawing on the left and Marco's drawing on the right, basically sort of where they're oriented on your screen. Marco's doing all the color stuff right now. Aaron's drawing the bear over there on the left. But yeah, just so people realize what's happening here, you're seeing both of their brush works happening at the same time from people who might not have seen this.
Yeah, I always, when we do things like this, I always talk, it's like we're sitting in a restaurant with a paper tablecloth and we're having a conversation doodling.
Yep.
So,
or like when your kid's doing that exactly, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So I do have some questions if you guys...
Cool. I've never used Magma, this app before, so, you know, this is a first for me. I don't even know what brush I'm using. Can I switch my brush? Oh, there it is.
One of the cool things about this particular
pressure, but
one of the cool things about this program is it will work on like Photoshop. It'll work on because it's all web based. It'll work on a Chromebook, which, you know, for like a lot of kids that are in like K through 12 that can't get access to really fancy Cintiqs and Intuos tablets and stuff like that, it's a good option for them.
Yeah. I'll tell you a funny story about my Cintiq. I have the same Cintiq as you. The biggest, best one.
Yeah.
I don't use it.
Oh, you're kidding.
It's a monitor for me. I'm looking at it right now. I still use this good old tablet.
Oh, that's funny.
And sometimes I am such an old man, guys. I am so habit driven because like back in 2000, I got a tablet. There was no Cintiq. So I got a tablet and like I still use the tablet because my brain cannot adjust to the Cintiq. I can't use it.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
That's what because of the Cintiq, that's one of the ways that I was able to kind of transition into the digital world. Yeah, it was because for me it was very similar to working traditionally, and I didn't do well with the tablet. I didn't do well, you know, with my hand in one place and my eyes in another. And
you know, I totally get that because for you, you probably had many years of a drawing experience before you picked up your first tablet, I would imagine.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, for me, I'd been drawing for about 2 years before I got my first tablet. But even for me, I remember like looking at my hand and then looking up and then looking at my hand. Now it's obviously second nature. But I think the thing that bothers me about the Cintiq, and I even have the mounting arm, so I can pull it right up here. It's just I don't like my own posture when I do this. Like it hurts for some reason, and so I'm just used to the tablet, I guess.
Yeah, it's funny because a lot of people, they think my posture is really weird, but I like to sit with my Cintiq. I have it on I built a stand for it, and it sits at about an 85-degree angle. It's only about 5 degrees off of being perpendicular to the floor. And so it's like an easel. And so I sit with it almost straight up and down. And what that does is, first of all, it strengthens your shoulders when you're drawing, but it keeps me from doing a lot of, drawing with my fingers and my wrist. So I don't have any carpal tunnel issues. It forces you to draw from your shoulder, which I do a lot of.
Right.
And
I gotta try that.
Yeah, it works really well.
I don't know if my mounting arm allows the Cintiq to rotate this way. I got to try that.
I have a question here
Uh,
from Martin.
Martin,
Martin.
Martin.
Martin
And,
Berger.
this is for you, Marco. What is your favorite traditional medium, and what is a medium you struggle
I have the same answer for both. Watercolor.
with?
And I'll expand on it. Hi, Martin. By the way, I actually know your name, Martin, because I watch the Aaron Blaze live streams. I'm a fan, and I've heard your name before pop up in the chat. So hello, it's a pleasure to talk to you. I love watercolor because it gives you so much. Like it gives back to you. It's the only medium I think that does that. Like if you let it do its thing, which is scary and uncontrolled, you have to kind of remove yourself a little bit and let the watercolor do what it's going to do. If you like mix wet into wet, what it gives back is just magic. Like with the edges that just bleed together. Color mixing happens for free with watercolor when you do that. I absolutely love the effect of watercolor. Also, the edge variety you can get with wet into wet versus wet over dry. I am totally enamored with the edge variety that happens there and what those edges look like. It's unique from any other medium, watercolor is. And also, watercolor happens to be a fantastic tool for painting outdoors because it tends to be pretty easy to clean up. You can get a painting going right away. No need to mess with drying acrylics or drying gouache and all that stuff. You could just go straight to it. And I use watercolor in my sketchbook a lot. Maybe I will bring one of those on screen later, but
No, that would be great. Yeah. And I agree with you. It's probably my favorite medium along with, I love to draw still too. And I love charcoal as a drawing medium. But as a, a painting medium, yeah, my favorite is watercolor. It's the first medium I started learning, when I was a kid, about 8 years old. And I agree with everything. I love using it as a plein air medium and a studio medium, all of them. It's just great.
Here's a question for both of you from YouTube. How do you manage to push through the early stages of a piece of work? Like when you're not totally happy, but you have to continue, and how do you push through that wall when you're not happy?
yeah.
Go ahead, Marco.
Yes, I think. Sorry, I got Zoom was doing good, then it just cut out there, but I think I got the gist of it.
How do you push through the early stages of a painting when it's not so good? Oh, maybe you didn't hear me. How do you push through the early stages of a painting when it's not so good?
Okay. Yeah. Really, what I hang everything on is composition. So, if generally speaking, and I know this is true for me, and I also know this is true for a lot of people because I've been a teacher for more than 10 years, so I've seen it over and over. If something's not working in your painting, consider the idea that it's your composition. That is, you're not intrinsically happy with where something is on the canvas. What that's doing subconsciously is it's making you not happy with the picture. But what you'll try and diagnose is you'll say, oh, it's my color, oh, it's my lighting, or it's, my drawing, which, I mean, it could be those things for sure. Those are all things that could cause problems. But if the composition is what will make you like a picture or not, because a composition is what engages you in the picture itself. So what I do is I'm really dialed into the composition as quickly as I can. Now, I established that with thumbnails. The course actually gets really into composition. The very first part of the course is several hours on composition alone because it's so important. And I feel like that's where people struggle the most, but they don't. But in general, I think people don't know that that's where they struggle the most.
Yeah.
Because as a teacher, I get a lot of pieces, illustrations submitted in various classes. And I'm like, your color's good. Your values are looking all right. It's just like, there's nothing going on compositionally. Like everything is just kind of there.
Right.
But how do things relate to each other? And like, it's not, the nice thing about composition, the magical thing about composition is composition is not just about where something is in the frame, but it's like the abstract parts, like how do values relate to each other? How does the value flow across, or how do a series of values, for example, flow across the page. So like there's a pleasing path that you can travel through. And that's regardless of the objects you're rendering. It's like, is there a path? Like if you look at, they can see my screen, right, guys? My
No.
camera.
Yes,
they
they can
your
see you.
camera. Yep.
They can see. We see you.
Oh, I cut you
Yes.
again.
Yes,
Okay.
we can see you, Marco.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's like, for example, a concept that I love to think about is like little visual pathways through similar values. So if I'm pointing at like this dark value I have up here from my sound baffles, it's like that dark value continues down the frame. Now, I'm not trying to compose my camera here, but like a similar dark value allows your eye to travel through this area. Similar values in general allow you to do that. It doesn't have to be just a dark value.
Right.
Similar values allow your eye easy passage through something. So when I am composing a picture, I'm very aware of like where are these little passages, like channels of water. That's how I think about them. How can I sail through these channels of value through the picture? And am I able to do that? And is the like you interrupt those channels with contrast? Is the contrast placed in areas where that deserve my attention? You know, so really, composition to me is about the handling or mishandling of contrast. And if you put your contrast in just the right spot, it's like boom, you can engage the viewer instantly. And then the other areas that are less contrasty need to have a flow that allow your eye to also be engaged around the rest of the picture. Like you can't just put something in the middle of the picture and call it a day. It won't. That's not going to be enough. But obviously, this is hard to talk about in words. That's why we have the class. But it's about the handling of contrast. So that is my answer to the question.
Yeah,
Look at your composition first and try and develop for yourself a series of principles that you can rely on as you build your picture.
You know, another one for me too is that, you know, I try to follow the same process every time too. So it streamlines the process of getting to a finished painting. You know, good composition, good whatever the steps are, and really trust the process. For a long time before I had the process down, I would get frustrated in the early stages and kind of give up on my work. And it wasn't until later that I really kind of came up with the process and learned to trust it.
Yeah, and it's yeah, oh, absolutely, that too. Yeah, I have I guess over the years you boil your decision making down to a series of processes, and like for me, value control is usually the first thing there. But also with value control comes shape design, which comes drawing, right? So it's like it's all connected.
Yeah.
You're never like doing just one thing. But a lot of the times my thumbnails, like when I do thumbnails, most of my thumbnails aren't concerned with the drawing of things. It's just value control. It's like what values go where. And
Right.
then from there, it's like, okay, I can plug the spaceship in there, or whatever it is, like whatever the subject matter is. My, you know, the green monster character, he goes there. The bridge goes here. But the value gets plugged into those objects, because obviously any object can have any value depending on your lighting, depending on your mood, and whatever it is.
Are you going to say, Nick?
Oh, I was just going to say, for people just joining us, we've got Marco BUCCI here, who has a new course available now at creatureartteacher.com. If you go to creatureartteacher.com/Marco, you can pick that up. It's out now. We're going to have a full YouTube preview coming out later this weekend of the course. But this was just kind of to let everybody know that it's live now. And I've got another question for you. This one's from Twitch. And the question was for both of you, since you studied animation and since you studied animation as well when you were younger, Aaron, before doing it, what was the hardest concept for you to wrap your head around or execute when you first started learning animation?
For me, probably the hardest thing was to get inside the character's head and focus on what a character's thinking and the performance and the emotion of a shot, rather than getting so hung up in how I'm moving a character and the mechanics and the spacing of one drawing to the next. I think that's what young animators get really hung up on, is worrying about that. You know, how much do I move it and how do I move it and this and that, rather than just thinking about the character, immersing yourself in the character, getting into the mindset of the character and letting that mindset drive what it is that you're drawing. And a big breakthrough for me was once I did that, Then all of a sudden I was creating poses, expressions, gestures, things that I knew the character was going to have to hit in order to portray the emotion that I'm trying to get across. And I would hit those, and that's what I would focus the drawing on. And then it just became the problem was linking those drawings together, which actually became easy after a while, or less hard. Linking those drawings together to create the animation. But when I focused on what that character is thinking, feeling, emoting, then there was a big breakthrough for me from an animation standpoint.
I have a related question for you, Aaron, about that.
Sure.
Go for it, Mark.
Sure.
Yeah. At what point does volume preservation become important to you in your process? Like, for example, let me just do it for instance. Let's say you have 2 keyframes, and if you look at my screen for a second, one keyframe, the character's head is here.
Yeah.
Then in your next key, the character's head is here.
Right.
At what point does like the volume of the head become important between those drawings to you? Like right away or later?
Well, to me, it's always important because the volume is going to dictate, in a lot of instances, it dictates perspective, right? And how close is something to you. So if it's growing in volume, it's getting closer to you. And if you don't want that to happen, then you've got to pay attention to those volumes. Even when I'm doing my rough scribbly pass, the roughest pass, the very first pass that I do, I'm thinking about volumes because I want to make sure that they stay consistent. That's the one thing I don't want to have to adjust down the road, because once volume starts getting out of hand,
Yeah.
it snowballs, the further you get. So I'm constantly, like I said, even in the scribble pass, comparing back to my first initial drawing, at least from a size comparison, making sure I'm staying within the right confines. And then it also, if I'm messing with Z depth in my shot, where a character is going into the shot or coming out of the shot, I want to make sure that the volumes are growing or shrinking consistent with the perspective that's in the layout as well. And so that's where it can get difficult sometimes as well.
Yeah. I have found that for me, again, an amateur, I'm not a professional animator, but for me, someone who's an enthusiast, to be the hardest part of animation for me, because I feel like after several, years and years, I have a handle over gesture and acting, and like I can get that down pretty quick. But when it comes to like the volumes, I find too late in my process, I'm like, oh, like the head is shrinking by 10% by the time I get here. That is I run into that all the time.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that I've learned over the years to pay attention to that every step of the way.
Right.
So that I don't find that I'm 30 drawings in and I've shrunk 10%.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
I have another question here from Martin for Marco. What painting mediums do you use for oil painting? And have you ever worked with a water-soluble oil paint?
Yeah, I actually got really into the water-soluble stuff just by necessity, because it's so easy. It's much easier to clean up. It's water-soluble, right? Just get a bucket, a little cup of water next to you. So yeah, I for years, like 4 years, I exclusively worked with water-soluble oil. And I loved it. I used the Winsor Newton stuff. I still have it in my studio here today. I do really like that. I found, though, that I drifted away from it, again, after many years, because there's something about the pigment of just regular old oil paint that was superior that I found. So I don't use it so much today, but it did play a huge role in my plein air painting. Yeah. I don't have them here, but I have canvases and canvases of water-soluble oil paintings. They're all small, like they're all tiny like this. This is a gouache, but they're all very small studies that I would do.
Yeah, those are beautiful.
What question for both of you? Do you have any European events or workshops planned within the next year?
Well, us personally, we're going to be at Annecy, France next week.
Yeah, Aaron and I are getting on a plane tomorrow and flying to
tomorrow,
France.
and we're on our way to France.
So if you're going to be at the Annecy Festival, we'll be there on Wednesday. Well, we'll be there the whole week, but Aaron will be doing a demo at the TV paint booth, and we'll be walking around the festival. So come say hi if you see us. What about you,
Orange,
Marco? Do you
the
do?
baguettes.
That's right.
You were just in Spain. Was that for a teaching thing, or was that just for travel?
Yeah, I was actually doing some teaching out there, but it wasn't a workshop. It was something that I will announce. I can't really announce yet, but it was some teaching out there. Yep.
Oh,
It's actually been a dream of mine to do what you guys do and travel around the world doing workshops. I feel like I can if I put some planning into that, I could do it. It's just I don't have a crew, and I'm stubborn that way. It's just me and my wife, and like with two young kids, kind of life gets put on hold in certain aspects. My kids are 4 and 2, so I haven't been able to do much in the past few years. But once I start getting a bit more autonomy back, I do want to plan like workshops abroad. That's a life goal of mine.
a couple years ago, we did a workshop in a castle where we rented out a castle and had a bunch of students come and do watercolor plein air painting with us.
That was fun.
And I brought my son, who was 2 at the time, and we
Yeah.
stayed there. He was running around the castle with a little wooden sword and all that. It was amazing. And we've been planning on doing it again, so maybe we'll have to have you on board on that one, Marco. That'd be a lot of fun.
Oh, I am there. I have. Oh, I would love that. I have taught workshops, like live workshops in the past. I did a series of them in Toronto, just to kind of gauge what they were like. I just threw it up on Facebook several years ago. I put it up on Facebook, like, hey, tomorrow I'll be here. Just come out, and like like a $10 fee, like something minimal.
Yeah.
And it turned out to be like, it was awesome. We had so much fun just bringing our sketchbooks out. I did a quick informal few series of demos, and just obviously it was all locals, right? Because I just announced it like 2 days before. So just locals coming out and painting at one of the marinas out there, and it was tons of fun. So I would love to do more of that. I'm obsessed with workshop videos, like artists, like watercolor artists who work on location and just talk about what they're doing while they paint. I love that stuff. I eat that stuff up.
Well,
So-
that actually brings me to something in the course. You drop a whole bunch of little nuggets, and several times you're like, "Oh, here's something I learned from this DVD, or something I remember from this teacher." I think you mentioned a tip from Drew Struzen, who's an amazing poster designer, and amongst many other things. And it's just really cool that you're paying. That all that stuff is so fresh in your mind. It really comes across well in the course.
And when your kids get older, you can crack the whip and have them help you out like I do with mine.
Yeah.
My daughter, I did an art class here in town. I live in a very small town, and during the winter fair, they asked me to do an art class, so I did. And my daughter was there, and she was participating, and she's obsessed with daddy as a teacher now. So I will definitely bring it. As soon as she's more able to help me out on the logistics end, I am putting her to labor.
There you go.
I'll pay her an ice cream.
Question from Zero Connection on YouTube for Marco and Aaron. Any advice for a colorblind artist? I mostly do digital art, and I'm a slave to the color picker tool. I'm also a bit too dependent on reference. Do you have any recommendations or advice? Your brother's a colorblind.
My brother is colorblind, so therefore he doesn't do a lot of. He's the red-green colorblind, and so he doesn't do a lot of color-dependent work, a full range of color. He'll do color stuff that doesn't depend on. It's more value-driven. And then regarding the reference thing, first of all, people should use reference. I still use reference all the time. For me, even if it's going out and studying something in person, reference is what educates our brain in order to create from the mind and down the road. It's when you become a slave to your reference, that's where the issue is. But using reference is everybody uses. I mean, I don't care if you're Joaquin Soria, Sargent, whoever. They all use reference in their paintings. It's just how you use it. So that's where the art comes in.
What about you, Marco? Any experience working with any colorblind artists, or any advice on that?
I have taught a few, yeah. And I think one of the thing we always land on is it's value first. That's a very common painting refrain. Value controls the form and not the color. So the good news is, if your values are strong, then especially digital allows you processes like glazing color over top, Without seeing your work, it's hard to fully, explain. But if your values are strong, use like an overlay layer, and you can. Oh, there goes Aaron's drawings.
Yep, just starting some new ones.
Nice.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, drawn right into the garbage cans. What we used to say. Draw and then throw them out. Anyway, yeah, value first, and then edge control second, and then if you feel you're strong in that area, start glazing color on top of those. And then when it comes to like color blindness, and again, unfortunately I'm not speaking from experience on this, so take it with a grain of salt, but probably like solicit a bunch of feedback from other people, like especially non-artists though. Show it to anyone you can and say like, does something look, is something look off here? And I know that one of my favorite artists, Peter DeSev, is at least partially colorblind, and I don't want to like put words in his mouth, but if you look up Peter DeSev interviews, he'll talk about that. And I think he relied a lot, or probably still does, relies a lot on his wife to talk, say like this color feels like it doesn't belong. And but back to color theory, if you base your colors on gray, colors, here, I'll do a little thing here. If you have a lot of gray colors, and this is true for anyone, suddenly gray colors, as I'm putting some swatches down, various different values, but making sure that the commonality is they're all based on grays, color harmony happens almost for free because, again, gray links color. Every
Right.
color has gray in common. So if you can base your paintings, make them a little grayer, but still have different hues, your chances of success with color are higher because the color harmony will be there almost automatically. And that actually dovetails into a technique I use in my painting a lot. And you can see it in my paintings in Aaron's class. I start grayish, not like 0% saturation, like 20 to 30% saturation. To me, that's still a neutral. Is if you're in like these colors I'm painting here, to me are like in this neutral stage. Base your initial lay-ins on that, and then what you can do is you start branching out saturation, and it'll feel warranted because again you're earning your way there through the grays, through the neutrals. When I say grays, neutrals is another way to say that.
Yeah.
So that has been something that works for me, and I really think it can work for colorblind people as well. And I've seen it actually work because I have had a few students who are colorblind.
Someone mentioned for people struggling with color blindness, a lot of people don't know this, but apparently Photoshop actually has 2 different color blindness modes built into it.
Oh, it does? Oh, I never knew that.
I didn't either.
I wonder how they work.
I'm not quite sure. So
I'm trying to do a tiny little thumbnail of Prague here.
There you go.
A question for Marco from Benji. Recently, I got myself some poster color to try. Have you ever used those colors? And any tips on using those colors? Or gouache, since they seem very similar to use.
Yeah, Dustin, can you repeat the last bit of the question? I apologize.
Any tips on using those colors?
Poster colors?
Yes,
yeah, I don't know
poster
what they
color.
mean by that.
Are
Oh, yeah, I have some too. Hang on.
Is that just the really vibrant, loud colors? I think that's what poster colors are.
Yeah, they're.
Go to the split screen.
Here's an example.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. The really bright stuff.
They are extremely bright. I think made famous by Studio Ghibli, who uses poster color for their background.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, they are like gouache. For those who don't know, they're like gouache, sort of a mix between acrylic and gouache. Is the way I find them. They water down really nicely, but they also lay opaquely really nicely. So they combine a bit of gouache and acrylic there. They have their flow is like acrylic, but their transparency is like gouache, if that makes sense. The tip I have is because they are very saturated, try and use a palette that has enough complementary colors on it that you can mix your grays. Again, going back to the gray thing. So, and try not to make yourself a palette that has too many colors because they are so saturated. You're going to have a hard time, anyone would have a hard time dealing with all those saturated colors in the mix. Limit your palette. That's where the limited palette wisdom comes in for traditional painters. If you want colors to use, I would say my favorite limited palette is Cad Red, Cad Yellow, which will give you an orange if you mix that, Ultramarine Blue, burnt sienna, and white, and you're done. With those colors, you can mix any color. You have your greens with your blue and your yellow. You have purples with your red and your blue, but it's a grayish purple. And you have a full range of warm colors from red, yellow, and orange. And of course, white to make it lighter. And then, did I say burnt sienna? Burnt sienna
Yes.
and ultramarine blue make a beautiful dark. And it's chromatic dark, meaning if you add more burnt sienna, it's a warmer dark. And if you add more ultramarine blue, it's a cooler dark.
That's great. Yeah. You ever done the Zorn palette?
Yeah. I've done a lot of Zorn palette. I like the Zorn palette a lot.
Yeah, I do too. It's great.
I was I was lucky enough to see some Zorn paintings, and it's just amazing what he got out of that palette.
I know it's incredible, but it's such a statement to the range that you can get and the harmony you can get by starting with that limited palette, like you're talking about. It's really that's where it starts, right? You know, and limit your choices to keep everything harmonized.
Roshan wants to
Absolutely.
know,
Yeah,
Marco.
that's exactly it. Because if
sorry.
you are achieving a series of colors by mixing the same base four pigments, suddenly those colors have something to do with each other because they're all derived from the same pigment,
Exactly.
and color harmony happens. You know,
Exactly. Yep.
and that's where digital painters who are like native to digital have trouble at almost across the board. Because again, I've been a teacher for more than 10 years. I've seen it over and over. When you're picking colors, it's very hard to have colors that have something to do with each other because you're just picking whatever. But when you're mixing, you're thinking differently.
Marco, on that topic, well, sort of on that topic, when you're outdoors painting, what materials do you normally carry with you in your bag when you're sketching in the field? Like, what's your go-to art tools?
Good question. I have a cut. Well, okay, you guys know the Moleskine brand of sketchbooks.
Yes. Yep.
So I started with those a lot, but then I started making my own custom sketchbooks based on that idea, where I would just buy craft paper from Strathmore. They have the thick craft paper that can take a wash. You can find paper like that online, and I would buy paper separately, like not sketchbooks. I would buy just separate paper, and then I would bind them together at a local print shop. All different colors of paper. I'd have oatmeal color paper, white, darker paper, and I would bind them all together at a print shop, and I would have my own little custom sketchbook with different types of craft paper. I don't have any. No, don't have any on me right now. But before that, I used a Moleskine sketchbook. Now, in terms of material, like the painting material, I would just bring with me a few different brushes, usually round synthetics, soft. Synthetics are usually soft, round. And I like round because you can get a tip, with the tip of the brush, or you get a broad stroke by using the side. And after that, I would bring a tiny little hotel jam container. You know, little jams they give you at hotels?
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Fill those with water, like just a little bit of water fits in there. And I glued a magnet to the bottom so I could magnetize it to my little board that I have. And that's what I would carry. So, and a paper towel. Oh, and my palette was just a little, those palettes they hold with your thumb, just a fold out palette of watercolors. Let's see let me run over to my desk, see if I can get it.
Sure.
So yeah, while he's stepping away in Marco's course, Aaron, he does, like I think I told you, he does watercolor, he does digital, and he also does an acrylic painting. Well, in the acrylic painting, he's like, well, let me break out some colored pencils and go into it with that. And then he's like, let me break out the airbrush. He does airbrushing in there, so he takes
I love
you
it.
through all that.
Yeah.
It's really a lot of fun.
And if you want to hear me get mad at an airbrush, this class is for you.
Oh yeah, he included an airbrush rant in the course.
Oh.
It's really good.
I love and hate the airbrush.
Have you ever done airbrush, Aaron?
I did in college, and I hated airbrush. I walked away from it. Yeah.
He's
I
like,
should
you gotta
let me
clean
just
it
say
before you
quickly,
use it.
guys,
You gotta clean it
It's
after
not
you
an
use it.
airbrushing course. Like I don't use an airbrush like an airbrusher.
Right.
I use it as a lay-in tool. Like it's a big broad brush that I can block in like big changes of value, big changes of color, and then I go in with the regular brush. So
Yeah.
airbrush is just acrylic, right? You're spraying acrylic paint.
Right.
So
And
it's
that's
just another way. It's like using an airbrush digitally, right? You just do big swaths of whatever. I use an
Right.
airbrush that way. But yeah, I got so mad because like it was clogging and spitting, and I'm like, there should be easier ways to clean these things. And then finally, I stopped filming. I was so mad. So I devoted that specific day to filming this painting. Oh, it was going to take several days, but I'm like, this day I'm starting this acrylic painting. And I spent like the first 4 hours struggling with the airbrush. I was so mad. And that's in the class.
I love it.
And then
The struggle is
I
real.
love later on, you're like, I may owe my airbrush an apology. It turns out. Yeah, no, but just to reiterate, it's not an airbrushing course. I don't want people to get the wrong idea, but it's just you show different tools and techniques and all kinds of stuff. So it's a great course. You also go through a lot of we talked a lot about color theory and composition theory, but you also break down a lot of other artists' work as well and kind of talk about what's working, what the common themes are about what's good composition, what's bad composition, and kind of, you show some really useful exercises to breaking that all down.
Yeah, one of the first questions I always have to people who I'm teaching with, in this case, creature art teacher, I ask, like, can I show other artists' work? Because I don't want people to think like this is just stuff that I do. It's just like, these are principles. Like, look, here's Aaron using it. Here's Sparth using it. Here's Craig Mullins using it.
Right.
Whoever it is. And it's like, these are principles that that you pick up on, that I have picked up on anyway. And there's even, the Hans Bacher. I'm sure you know that. I'm sure you know him, Aaron.
I know him very well. Yes.
Hans is like the composition guy. And he put out during the production of Mulan.
Yeah.
He put out that composition guide.
I loved Hans, because Hans, just on a little sidetrack, Hans was always so brutally honest. And if Hans liked the piece of art you did, boy, you felt like $1 million. But 9 times out of 10, I'd show him a piece of art and he'd go, no, that's shit. It's like, but then you go, okay, let me show you why. It's like, okay.
Yeah. I've never met him before, but I get that sense just reading his manual.
Yeah.
I'm like, here's a person who is convicted or has conviction in his ideas.
Yeah.
And God help you if you don't see it that way.
Exactly. I loved Hans, though. He was just, I think he's in the Philippines now.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, he's great.
I learned a lot from that specific document that circulated through Mulan, and I reference it in the class. That circulated the studios I worked at circa like 2001-ish. Just like, here are some good ideas. Again, composition is not like a thing like anatomy. Like with anatomy, like here's the rib cage, here's the sternum,
right,
here's the teres major. But with composition, it's not like that. Composition is like, here are some broad things that can work if you use them in conjunction. But you don't have to use them. It's just big ideas that can work. And the class focuses on what those the first part of the class focuses on what those big ideas are and how I use them and how I've seen others use them. And it's not a formula, but it is a bit of a cookbook that you can use.
Yeah, that's great. Love it.
Am I talking very loud?
No, you're perfect.
Fine.
You're perfect. Yep.
I feel like I'm screaming.
Martin is wondering, how did you two meet?
Oh, yeah. I'll answer that one.
Through 1000, right? That was through the world's biggest YouTube collaboration, right?
Yeah, and then we met at Lightbox, right?
Yeah, you met in person at Lightbox,
Yeah.
but it was the project that kind of...
Yeah, because we had followed you on YouTube for a while.
Yeah, when that project was going on, I'm sitting there. My son had just been born a few months ago, and I had it was the day after I went on paternity leave. Like my wife was off she took 6 months off, and then I was taking 6 months off, and it was like the day after that, I got an email from Aaron, and we'd never talked at all before.
Yeah,
and I was like I had a little fanboy moment. I'm like, Aaron, Blaze, this has got to be a scam. And, it was asking me to do the next phase of the project, and there's a reaction video I did for the acceptance of that, where I kind of recreated the actual moment that I got that email. I was laying on the grass with my son, checked my phone, and there's your email. So that's how we first started talking, and then we first met in person at Lightbox 2022. Yeah. where Aaron handed off the painting to me.
Yeah.
And then I
remember that
proceeded to
video.
take way too long in doing my part, which oh boy, did I hear about that.
Did you? Yeah, I'm sure. Well, it's usually from the fans that are waiting, right?
Oh, it was totally rightful. Like, I was taking too long because I was trying to juggle a new son
Yeah,
and
of
that,
course.
and I put off the project a bit too long. And one day, my wife, I never check comments. I don't check. It's just a mental health thing. I don't check comments, but my wife does. And one day, she was like, "You're getting a lot of people asking about this, and some of them are not happy with you."
It's like you're
like,
getting
"Oh,
some hate.
you're
Because that's
getting
what
some hate."
that's what happened to us. Yeah.
So
We got the
like,
same
okay.
thing. We got the
We-
same thing. It was, oh, we're taking too long, and yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah, didn't those start
In my
after,
case-
like a week after?
sorry, what was that?
Like I was just asking, like, didn't we start getting those comments like a week after?
Yeah, we did. It was like people were, yeah, it doesn't matter. But yeah, anyway, that was it came out great in the end. I
Yeah.
loved what everybody did.
Yeah, so for me, yeah, it took me a few months, but anyway, it was it turned out to be, I'm really happy with how that project came out, like on everyone's end, not just my end. It was cool to see everyone's work come together. And I ended up having a lot of fun doing the video, and I think my portion was generally well received, so that's fun.
Exactly. So in the end, it's the product that matters. So
Yeah. Will
So-
I do it again? No.
right.
So I want to let everybody know that's joining us today that might have missed the beginning. In addition to Marco's course that's out on the website, we've also got right now our two biggest deals ever at Creature Art Teacher going on. We've got a brand new Aaron Blaze animation mega bundle that includes all of Aaron's courses for one low price. Plus, it works kind of like a Humble Bundle or any of those sorts of deals. Basically, the more we sell, we're going to add more courses to it. So we're over halfway to our first unlock. So if you go pick up the course at creatureartteacher.com, if more people buy it, we're going to add more to it. And we've also got, in addition to that, we've got a lifetime membership available to creatureartteacher.com. This is limited edition. We've only got 500 of these available. We're already about half sold out. And by picking up either of those, you're going to directly help us, contribute to us helping finish Snow Bear, Aaron's animated short that he's working on. So just want to let people know, creatureartteacher.com. And while you're there, pick up Marco's new course, which is out now as well. It's out today. If you go to creatureartteacher.com/Marco, it's a 10.5-hour course over 10 videos. He takes you through watercolor painting, acrylic painting, digital painting. He takes you through lectures on his approach to all of that, and really, really cool, just invaluable information. I've seen all of our courses, but this one really spoke to me, Marco. Like, as I was putting myself in the mind of the student, and I was like, that's something tangible I can use. Oh, there's something tangible I can use. Boom, there's something tangible I can use. It's not all just, I don't know, artsy fartsy. It's like, it's practical. It's cool.
Thanks, Nick. And once again, the second you start to give me some nice words, my Zoom cuts out. So
That's by design. Yeah,
But I got
we're going through a tunnel.
yeah, both of them. This is the acrylic piece. My color balance is off, but this is the piece I did just for the acrylic. It's a little bit of a sad picture of an old woman visiting her loved one, and
Yeah, I love that.
he's
I
passed
love
away.
that painting.
Oh, thanks, Aaron. It's a lot of my art comes from my own life, and like this reminds me of my own grandparents. But that is the acrylic piece. It's, as you can see, it was pretty big. It was 18 inches, 20 inches wide, I think. The watercolor is a 9x12, and the digital is, well, it's digital, but it's a high res, your usual high res canvas. And along the way, it talks about but the theme of the class is like learning the fundamentals, but instantly applying them directly to an illustration. So the course goes over, for example, lighting. Okay, how do you control light? Well, you learn about warm and cool. Is your light source warm or is it cool? If it's warm, you might want to use this approach. If it's a cool light, you might want to use this approach. You might find these colors in a cool light. You might find these colors in a warm light. How do light and shadow relate to each other? all that stuff is like the foundational lecture that I first start with, and then it launches right into like, okay, here's a painting. Let's apply all this. And I try my best to show you, like when I talk about the foundations, I try and use demonstrations that lead seamlessly into the piece that I'm going to do. So it's not like you're learning the foundations of one thing, but then I'm applying it to some other different language. It's like I'm trying to make it seamless. So that is how I thought of the course as I was making it.
That's great.
Yeah, and I had a fun time. The creature art teacher guys there were very generous with me because it did take me way longer than I thought to produce it. So thank you guys. Just want to say thank you for giving me the time.
Oh, it's our pleasure. Good things are worth the wait. There was no problem on our side at all. We were super happy to have you. For people who don't know, who might just follow Aaron, you should absolutely look up Marco's YouTube channel. Marco BUCCI on YouTube. Just do a search for that. I'll post a link in the comments as well. His YouTube channel is incredible. He's got awesome, like just really cool practical tip videos, all kinds of art tip videos, stuff about his art journey, all kinds of stuff on there. And super entertaining. Like I love your videos. Like it's something we've talked about. Like
your production value is awesome.
Your production value is awesome, and they're just fun to watch. You know.
Thanks, guys. Thanks. I appreciate it. I think that comes from me being my own. I'm super specific. Like when I make these videos, like I'm a bit. I don't know if perfectionist is the right word, but I have a vision for how things should be, and like I just do it until it's done, until it meets that. And for some reason, that precludes me from hiring help, which I really should do if I want to be more productive. But
Yeah.
as my wife will tell you, like my number one downfall is I don't hire help, but I do everything myself in a stubborn way. But I just want things to be a certain way. So
we've got a lot of people commenting that the two of you are my two favorite art teachers. It's like better than college classes, is what a lot of people are saying. So
thanks so much.
Well, I like that. And I love getting other teachers on, and when we can talk about our philosophies and all of that. It's always it's rewarding.
Yeah, well, I've said it before, but people should know I'm a fan of Aaron just as much as you guys are. I think I first found out about you, Aaron, through Brother Bear, because I have the art book.
Oh yeah.
I don't know what year that was, but that's when I first saw your name, and then from there, it's like, oh, this guy worked on, Lion King and Aladdin and all these films that were really important to me, seminal to my own.
What's the book where you're in the purple tank top with the
Aladdin?
Is that the Aladdin book?
Yeah. It's so funny.
Do you know who Tom Moore is?
No.
Mark, he's the director of he's with Cartoon Saloon. He's the director of Song of the Sea and Secret of the Kells and Wolfwalkers and all that. He's a really cool guy.
Irish animator.
Yeah. We had lunch with him one time, and he's like, I had the Aladdin book, and he's like, I saw Aaron in there, and he's like, oh wow, these guys, I didn't know animators were like rock stars. They're like super cool. And Aaron's like, he's like, that's the worst picture I've ever taken. I'm wearing a purple tank top. I've got braces. I've got a mullet.
Oh yeah.
Terrible.
Well, I mean, it was the 90s. So you got to pass.
Yeah, it's funny. But yeah, it's the feeling's mutual. I love getting together with good artists and talking art and all that great stuff. Keep clicking on the wrong.
Aaron, I also have if I ever get around to finishing it, I have a painting series on my channel called 10 Minutes to Better Painting. And it's probably the series of videos on my channel that at least people tell me they enjoy the most. And I'm drawing him right now. My intern character is the kind of the star of that series.
Uh-huh.
And he is verbally abused by me throughout the series. And he's pretend, don't worry, he's not real. And the verbal abuse is very minimal. But he's just a play on the concept of being a free intern in the art community, which is actually how I started. So the intern is me. It's me making fun of me. And anyway, the intern goes through all kinds of misadventures, and he is currently lost in another dimension. That's how the last episode ends off. And that episode is like now 2 years old. I decided to pick up the series and work on the next one. And the storytelling goal is to bring the intern home. Of course, you learn about painting along the way somehow. But the goal is to bring the intern home, and along the way, he's in another dimension, but he's able to go through wormholes and meet different artists, and therefore I have cameos in the video. So Aaron is one of those cameos, and he meets the intern, and I won't tell you how. It'll be a surprise for the film, but it's basically like a little short animated film, and I have had all kinds of ups and downs with it. It's taken me way too long to do it because I've had people drop out. I've had story changes because people have dropped out and I couldn't do a certain thing. But I have some guests on there, including Aaron, who I'm over the moon about that I have them in my video. And it's just a matter of me to get the animation done for the intern to finish it. One of these days.
I remember it's going to be, yeah, it's really fun. It's cool.
So you do a lot beyond just film and game stuff. You also do a lot of book illustration work, don't you?
Yeah, all kinds of. I've done like young adult books and children's books, and I just wrapped up working on a young adult book. Again, NDA reasons I can't say what it is, but
Right.
yeah, and that's a lot of fun because I like that kind of illustration work because I get to run the gamut of all the roles. Like I get to do the characters, the backgrounds. I get the final say on. No. But yeah, I get the final say on like, the color palettes and things like that. Obviously, it goes through revisions just like any other project, but I really like illustrating books and doing the full illustration myself, which I feel is like a different role than concept art. Like with concept art, you're fulfilling a need for part of a film, let's say, like your concept needs to fit in a bigger world, and I love that. I love that too. I've done work like that too. But when it comes to illustration, it's like the world is just in your picture, and like you have full control over everything. It's not part of a bigger film. It's like that's your world, and I really have enjoyed illustration work over the years for that reason.
So I know you did some stuff. You've done several Disney projects related to that. I know you did some Jungle
Yeah.
Book stuff and the Nutcracker stuff and stuff like that. And we get questions about this sort of stuff all the time. How did you? And I know you've done stuff for like Magic the Gathering as well. So you do freelance illustration a lot of the times. How did you break into that? How did you get your career going as a freelance artist?
Yeah. How did I get my career going? Again, sorry, Nick. I think one of us cut out there.
How
did I
did
my
how did you
career
get your career going as
Yeah.
as a freelance artist? Like, how do you find work when you were starting out? We get those types of questions a lot from people.
Yeah.
How to break in.
So I worked. Yeah, I guess this is an important kind of distinction. So I did not start my career as a freelancer. I started in the studio system. I used to live in Toronto. Still today I live just 30 minutes outside of Toronto, but in Toronto there's a lot of animation studios, which I was fortunate to live in a city that had animation studios in it. But I just went out to job fairs, and I was able to network a little bit. Also in the local life drawing community in Toronto, people who worked at studios would go life drawing, and I would meet them as a young student. And when it came time to visit a job fair, they were the studio called Core Digital Pictures, which they don't exist anymore. But Core Digital Pictures was crewing up for a TV show, a children's animated TV show, and I had a portfolio full of like animation style paintings. Like these, these are old. This was in my portfolio. These are color key studies from, there's Beauty and the Beast. There's Emperor's New Groove. There's Aladdin in the Cave of Wonders, right? There's another Emperor's New Groove. And I had all these, there's Spirited Away, Emperor's New Groove. Anyway, I had all these color keys of all different mediums, digital, traditional, and character stuff, and a portfolio like that. And I was able to get a job. And that got me in the door in the studio system. And then once you're in the studio system, it's like, now you're surrounded by like professional artists. And that was a first for me. And you do a lot of learning and a lot of networking because you make friends, and if you're a good person to work with, your name will be spoken of favorably. And they call it breaking in for a reason, I guess, because once that contract ended, my first job was only a 9-month contract, but once that job ended, it's like, oh well, hey, Julie's going over to Pipeline, which is another studio I worked at. She could put in a good word for me. They need artists. Like, hey, I worked with this guy Marco. He's good at color. Give him a call. And suddenly word of mouth started working in my favor. And so I really credit my career, which includes my freelance career now, to kind of starting in the studio system. I that's the way I did it, so I don't know any other way to do it. Like I know artists today, a lot of people talk about starting as a freelancer. I didn't do it that way, so I can't really offer too much advice there. I imagine the struggle though with starting as a freelancer is like, fewer people would know who you are because you haven't done just by nature, you haven't done a lot of networking yet. So I would try, again, this is just advice, could take it as you will. I would try and find ways to network. Conventions come to mind as being a great way to do that. I met Aaron at a convention. My last job that I did was from networking at a convention. And when I say networking, it's not like you're, it's not like you're putting on a mask and like acting out a character. It's just being at a convention and either exhibiting your work or just talking to people, and people learn who you are. It's if people know who you are, it's such a powerful thing, and getting FaceTime with people is part of that. So
Yeah, I think
that is what I attribute it to.
Yeah, I think your path, I've heard a lot from people that have successful freelance careers. People start at a studio, establish themselves, and then branch out into freelance. I think that happens a lot. And I really just think good work begets more good work. So, in other words, not being dependable, I'm sure, being reliable, not being a flake, being able to take being able to take notes and feedback from a client or an art director or whatever it is. A lot of people don't last in the art field because they don't realize that it's work. It's a job. It's not just
nope, cutting out.
Nope,
Just want to make
you're
sure I'm
good.
not interrupting anyone.
Go for it. You're good.
Yeah, that maxim advice you hear where you're like, oh, do what you love and you won't work a day in your life. That's not true.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
If you are doing work as an artist, it can be work, trust me. It can still be very fortunate. You can still be very privileged to do this. And I count myself privileged every day that I get to make YouTube videos. I get to teach painting. I get to be live streaming with Aaron here and you guys. And this does not feel like work today, but like when you're working on your 5th round of revisions, come back to me with you'll never work a day in your life. It's work.
It's true.
Sometimes satisfying client requests it can be a maddening experience, or sometimes clients are very awesome with knowing exactly what they want. I find the best clients are people who can talk to you like emotionally. They're like, the piece needs to feel like this, and they don't try and tell you what to do. They give you the emotional advice, and then you filter it through your own artistic lens, and you say, okay, that means the lighting should be like this, or like this character should be in shadow, whatever it is you interpret it. But clients will come at you all over the place with different types of ways of communicating, and it's really been a fascinating learning experience for me to have dealt with all kinds of different clients, artists, non-artists, and all the variations in between.
Aaron, here's a question for you. I think you told a story once about how in Lion King you finished a shot and got all the way to the end, and the director was like, "Oh, that's great. Can you just change the camera angle a little bit?"
Yeah. Yeah. It was that was par for the course on working on Lion King. I never, ever, ever, ever got a shot through the first time. And then, in this particular one, it was like, yeah, everything's perfect. Can I just get it a little bit more of an up angle? It's like, great. Okay, thanks.
Because that means redo every drawing.
Oh, yeah. I had to redraw the whole thing. Exactly.
Oh man,
What's the record for you, Aaron, in terms of how many times you've had to redo a shot?
There's a shot where in Beauty and the Beast where the Beast is dodging. Belle is trying to get him with the rag to nurse his wound, and he keeps dodging out of the way. And no matter what I did, it felt like it was always being forced. And I think I roughed it and re-roughed it and re-roughed it, I think 12 or 13 times before I got it to where I liked it.
Wow.
And it was just driving me crazy. I could not get it right. Yeah. But you just don't give up either. You don't give in.
Yeah, no, that can be a slog for sure. But also the thing that I found with working for studios and clients and getting revisions is like it kind of forces you to be able to have that flexibility with your work because in general, like if you're just working for yourself, it's kind of hard to give yourself actual good revisions
Yeah.
because like you're you become attached to what you made or you can't I think generally it's you can't imagine it another way past a certain point. It's difficult for your brain to step outside and say, "Hey, what if you did this?" Working for clients where they can tell you that has been really positive for me because suddenly I can look at my work and say, "Well, if I submitted this to an art director, and I would even imagine some of my favorite art directors who I've worked for, say, what would they say about this?" And I would imagine maybe feedback I might get, and I have developed a thick skin in terms of what it takes to rework something.
Yeah.
I used to almost be upset when someone would ask me to redo something. Like it would trigger a negative emotion for me. But now it's like, well, what they're doing is potentially offering you a chance to make it better. And I try and apply that to my own work, all the time.
Yeah, I mean, sitting here, I'm basically sitting in a vacuum creating Snow Bear for 2 years, and it wouldn't be half the film that it is now. And I'm really happy with it. Had I not had Nick to bounce ideas off of, and my wife Vedanta to have a look at something and say, hey, what do you think of this? You just, making something in a vacuum completely, especially a big project, it's a hard thing to do. And it really, you do get, a lot of times it's hard to see the forest for the trees. And
I'll often tell you stuff is bad just to give you the studio experience. I mean, I like it perfectly fine, but I figure, I don't want you getting too complacent.
no, too cocky. Exactly.
So yeah, with
I
Marco's,
apologize for my internet. I don't know if it's me. I don't know who it is, but for some reason, I'm having a terrible time right now.
I think it might be on your end because
It's on your end because you're coming through loud and clear on our end.
yeah, you're coming.
Okay,
through,
good. I'm not cutting out on your end.
No.
Yeah, you're not cutting out
Okay.
at all. The good news is when you're speaking.
Okay, great. Well, at least that's good news.
Yeah, so everybody can hear you perfectly fine on the live stream, which is great. We had a little bit of a low volume issue early on, but I got it fixed during the stream. So if you go back and watch the replay, the sound gets better about 5 minutes in, I
Cool.
think.
What I'm doing now in my drawing, I just decided to switch over and just start doing these gestural scribbles because I wanted people to see that, and I'm sure you feel the same way, Marco. A lot of times when we're exploring ideas, this is where it starts. It doesn't start as these beautiful drawings, and this is something. If anyone's, and I'm not sure if you're familiar. Are you familiar with Walt Stanchfield, Marco?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Drawn to life and all that.
Yeah. Walt Stanchfield was one of my instructors when I was an intern at Disney, and it's all about telling the story with a gesture, telling how strong, you could be drawing from life, but can you push those gestures? Can you push the story that you're trying to tell? And so yeah, and he was just such a master at that kind of stuff, and I wanted to kind of switch over to just doing little scribbles, little poses, and anyway, that was.
Well, Zanji has a
what we're
question
doing.
for you, Marky. Zanji has, Zanji has a question for you. Oh, man, I cannot talk all of a sudden.
You want me to take over?
Now, hey, Marco, next week I'll be painting in a plein air competition. Do you have any tips for painting fast, capturing live color with slow drying acrylics on canvas? Could you hear that, Marco?
Sorry, I cut out right at the end, Nick.
Nope, no problem. I'll be painting in a plein air competition. Do you have any tips for painting fast, capturing live color while dealing with slow drying acrylics on canvas?
Okay. Tips for getting started quickly.
Painting quickly, capturing live color while dealing with slow drying paint. He's in a plein air competition.
Okay. I would get your mixtures for hopefully you have a clear sunlit day, hopefully, because then you can separate mixtures of light and shadow and you can decide on them quickly. What I would do is pre-mix some basic colors for your light objects in light and basic colors for your shadow. When I say basic, I mean like a couple of variations for your light and for your shadow. So if it's like a sunlit day, you're going to be dealing with a sunlight that is warmer versus an environment that's cooler. There's no exceptions to that. If it's a sunlit day, the sky is always going to be cooler than the sun. So you can establish your warms and cools with pre-mixtures, and then especially if it's like slow drying paint. And I hope I'm answering the question. I had a bit of a lagging issue. I apologize. You can start laying in using those pre-mixed colors. Use them for various objects across the piece, and hopefully you can pick a subject that has a lot of the same type of subject. Like for example, a subject that has a lot of trees. Then if you pre-mix your greens in light, you can use those greens throughout a lot of your piece, right? Or if it's buildings, you pre-mix like the building material in light, the building material in shadow, compare them on your palette, and then you dip into those mixtures a lot. This is something I learned from Scott Christensen, who was a big influence on my plein air painting, big influence on my painting in general. Scott Christensen he's still an active painter today. He's amazing. He pre-mixes all his colors on his palette, and he only starts the drawing and painting process after he has completed his pre-mixtures. And it's amazing how quickly you can start laying in a painting that way, rather than like trying to mix a color every time you're drawing something new. And also, if you pre-mix, you can also start to gauge like the quality of your color harmony just by looking at your palette. And if it kind of looks pleasing on your palette, it'll probably look pleasing, on your canvas too. So
Yeah, and Scott Christensen is another one that really lives in the grays a lot too. I love that.
Oh yeah, yeah. Scott is one of the people who taught me about grays, because Scott would he still does. He only uses the 3 primaries plus white. Like that's it. And he pre-mixes his grays based on the primaries. And he'll bottle them. He'll tube them up. Like he'll pre-mix a batch of like greenish gray and bottle it up for later, right? So he doesn't have to pre-mix his grays all the time. I thought that was just brilliant, because he'll go out there and he'll be like, yep, just cad red, cad yellow, and ultramarine and white, and like boom, he's got a whole range of color and tone.
Yeah, I think people, especially with digital, back to your point earlier, you see that hue color wheel or the hue square or whatever, and it's like, wow, I've got every color to choose from in the world. And it's like, yeah, that's a problem, actually. Because people, yeah, you're right, just randomly like, let me try that, let me try that, let me try that. And it doesn't. Oh, Zounji said, thank you for that answer. That was very helpful, Marco.
Oh yeah, my pleasure. Great question. Good luck in the competition.
YouTube question. Marco, have you ever done anything like a graphic novel? I'm trying to start one by myself, and I was just wondering if there's anything I might need to know beforehand.
Not a graphic novel specifically, but I have done. I have made several films, some fully animated, some partially animated. I would say be very clear about storyboarding. Like get your initial direction decided on with roughs first. I mean, that's obviously not groundbreaking advice, but don't dive into finals too soon, because what you'll probably find is that you'll be happy for the first few days, but then suddenly problems start arising, and you haven't planned for how to solve them, and you've done so much work that you now need to undo. So work very small. And the other thing is get a cork board or a whiteboard. I like cork boards because it's so easy to move like things around, like paper and stuff, and like get your planning visually in front of you. Don't keep it in your head. Get your planning on paper in front of you, or even maybe a digital cork board even. But I again, old school, I prefer visual, tactile things. Cork boards are great because you can just test out your ideas by unpinning something, move it over here, do a quick drawing or a few panels, put them here, and see how that might compare to panels 2 pages later, and get your planning solidly in place for the main beats. Like if you're doing a 3-act structure, try and maybe get your beats in place for that, and see if you can have a flow on your corkboard before moving to any kind of final art. Because remember that probably the thing that will, if you're doing a graphic novel or any kind of narrative, the thing that's going to keep people engaged is your storytelling, not necessarily the drawing. Like the drawing will be a nice bonus, but it's gonna be your storytelling. So and you don't have to do finished art to establish that. You can do it in roughs.
That's awesome.
Truth, absolute truth, right there.
Oh, Proco's watching. They say hello.
Rocco,
Rocco.
who's that guy?
Hey, Stan.
Who's that guy?
Or Steven or Sean or whoever's out there in Proco Land today.
He's all right.
They say, look at all these handsome, skilled artists on the screen today.
Where? Where?
I don't know what he's talking about.
So we're at the hour and a half mark. I want to see if we got some
Yeah,
additional
let's see if we
questions.
can, I was
from
going to say,
anybody.
let's see if we can get a few more questions, and then we'll start wrapping it up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
get those questions in.
You want to hear a
Martin's
funny story
question.
quickly, Aaron?
What's that?
I got a funny story about the Beast.
Let's hear it.
Okay, just quick. So again, relating back to the beginning, I got this drawing of the Beast from Beauty and the Beast on my wedding day. My wife gave it to me as a gift, and my grandmother was there when she's passed away now, but rest in peace. But she was there on my wedding day, and she's looking at it, just look. She's never seen a rough drawing, and she cannot make heads or tails of this thing, right? So she's looking at it, and suddenly a recognition sparks her eyes, and she says, "It's the Pope."
Of course.
Yeah. I'm like,
Yes,
yeah,
Grandma.
yes, it's the Pope. Yep.
He's the Pope.
That's
That's
hilarious.
So for Martin, he from the two-part question that he asked, I guess we accidentally skipped over the first half of the question, but he's just reposting the question. What mediums do you use for traditional oil painting?
What mediums?
What mediums do you
Like-
use?
like-
for
Oh, like linseed oil or?
yeah. Like what type of oil do you use?
Okay, quickly. When obviously water soluble oil, you use water. When I use regular oil paint, I use linseed oil or there's a special combination where you mix like Damar varnish with linseed oil with turpentine. It's like a really nice little mixture. You can look that up. It's a special percentage of mixtures. Richard Schmid is the one who got me onto that. But if I'm just in a rush, I'll use linseed oil or any kind of oil, really.
I know Ken's producer, who did an oil painting course for us. He's a big fan of walnut oil. He really likes that.
Oh yeah, that too. Yep.
Yep. This is a big question to get into at the end, but I don't want to ignore it. Have you noticed any effects of AI affecting your job yet, or the industry, whether it be animation, Aaron, or illustration? Have you seen any impacts?
I don't see it impacting me personally. I do see it impacting everywhere else. I mean, if you go on, you can't escape it on social media.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, AI is going to change our lives in every aspect of our lives. And so the art world, yes, it's going to affect us. I don't know. People keep asking me, how's it going to affect you? Well, for me, I love the process. I mean, part of why I make animated film is, well, not part of it's the reason I make animated films is because I like to make animated films. And so the idea of having AI create animated films for me is not that's not why I do it. So AI is not going to be something that I'm going to use as a filmmaking tool. And I'm just going to continue to make films the way I want to make films. And I'm sure executives along the way, I mean, we've already had Sony come out, the head of Sony come out and say, hey, we're going to be using AI to make the next Spider-Verse movies. And it's going to affect especially younger people coming into the industry now in big, profound ways that we can't even think of, I'm sure. But for me personally, I'm going to keep making films the way I want to make films because I love making films.
By the way, just so you know, the directors of that movie came out and said, absolutely, there will not be any AI used on the next Spider-Verse movie. So,
Okay, good.
interesting.
Good.
What about you, Marco? I know it's a big loaded question, but any thoughts on that?
Yeah, just speaking from experience, I had my very well two really, but one major one. My first job where the client sent me mood boards that were AI generated, and like starting off points. Let's say I have made the decision not to use it in my own work at all for the same reasons Aaron said. Like to me, it defeats the purpose. Like I don't want the the algorithm like that making decisions for me like it does. Um, First of all, they're not my decisions, and the whole reason to do art is to pull something out of your head that's based on your own unique personality and emotion and memory and all that, or whatever it is you draw from. And AI uh, goes around all that. It doesn't allow you to do that, so I don't use it. Professionally, though, I have had to work from it from people who sent me images that are AI generated. But like even then, it's like I looked at the image like I would look at any reference image and like created my own,
Yeah.
final piece from that inspiration. Um, I think the ethical concerns behind AI are more real than ever, and thankfully there's like apps like Kara that people are moving to. That I am also doing that that prevent people's work from being scraped without their consent. Um, the thing, if I were to pivot, the thing that worries me the most about AI, and just like Aaron, it's not about how it's going to affect me because I feel like I've started doing this like 20 years ago. Like I've developed my own professional skill set at this point. Like I don't need that tool, but what I'm afraid of is that people who are starting today, they're not going to be as good as what AI can do right away. Like it takes years to get good at art. And I fear that the temptation of using AI is going to overwhelm someone who's really young today, and they will by default start using it a lot and like maybe even forget to learn fundamentals. And that's like my big profound worry about AI. I hope I'm wrong. I hope
I think that's already happening, to be honest with you.
yeah, it could be.
Yeah.
I hope people who start using AI, like young people today who maybe don't have the perspective to think it through like we are. I hope that they will say, hey, my art still needs fundamentals, and if you don't know what those are, you can type prompts all day and still not come out with anything, that you that is consistent or usable. So I hope that people still come back to the fundamentals. But yeah,
I
that's
think
my main worry.
I think it's a good segue to plug your course one more time.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. If you want to learn those fundamentals, we have a brand new course from Marco Bucci out today at creatureartteacher.com. You can go straight to creatureartteacher.com/Marco, and that'll take you right to it. I didn't mention this earlier, but it is 50% off as a special introductory price. So now's the best time to get it. If you go to creatureartteacher.com/Marco, it's over its 10.5-hour course. He's such an awesome teacher. I really, I watch all these courses because I have to go through them. And, I love all of our courses and I love all of our teachers, but I just found this one particularly captivating and engaging. And I personally got a lot out of it. So, thank you, Marco, for your contribution. And I know everyone's going to love it when they get their hands on it.
Oh, thanks, Nick. That means a lot. It's the course is the theme of the course is and the title itself is from fundamentals to finished illustrations, finished art, making sure that what you're doing in your art is based on sound fundamentals. And the course is designed where I start off by delivering an initial lecture. It could be maybe an hour long, a bit more, whatever. There's different topics. There's composition, there's lighting, color, things like that. I start by delivering a little bit of a foundational, like almost theoretical lesson. Like here's principles, how they work, how you can study them, and then that launches right into like a finished piece of art. So I have always valued instructors who can like put their words to practice, right? Theory to practice. So I start off with the foundational lesson, and then the next section of the class is immediately using it. And maybe I tried my best to design the pieces to use that particular lesson that I just did. And the pieces evolve in complexity. So there's 3 pieces in the course. There's a watercolor painting, there is a digital painting, and there is an acrylic painting. The acrylic painting is, I have the acrylic painting here. It's this lady visiting her loved one. And, there's a lot of very art directed color in this one, as you can see. My camera actually is not capturing it. It's more vibrant than it looks on camera now. But there's a lot of like art directed color here. The digital one is very similar. It's got a lot of like dramatic lighting that is very feels like a stage almost, like a stage production. And then the watercolor one is more composition based. And along the way, you get to learn how to use different mediums too: watercolor, digital, acrylic. I think the acrylic painting is particularly cool, at least for me, because I use different types of application, like airbrush, colored pencil, which is not acrylic, but colored pencil in there, and good old painting with a brush as well. So hopefully, my goal with the course is to kind of give you a big overview, like condensing art school into one package is kind of the goal of the class.
Well, on that note, I want to thank you very, very much for joining us today. It was awesome. I love doing these conversations where we can sit and jabberjaw and sketch and just get a little bit of philosophy. And the course I'm super excited about. I know our followers are very excited about it, and I want to thank you once again for not just doing the course, but joining us and becoming part of our team. I just love it.
Yeah, and I know Proco was here watching. For people who don't know, Marco also has courses over on their site, as does Aaron. So, when you finish learning at our site, go over to proco.com and pick up some stuff from them as well, because, we're big believers that rising tides raise all boats, and I think learning is a lifetime process, and that's something you're really gonna get a sense of when you take Marco's course over at Future Art Teacher.
Well, thanks so much. I fully echo those sentiments. It's so cool to be in the community of teachers and students, and I consider myself a lifelong student. I love watching your live streams, Aaron. I'm always lurking in the audience. I rarely comment, but I'm lurking there most of the time. And as I work on my own stuff, it's fun to have another artist on there, doing their thing. It's just sharing the inspiration, and as a teacher, hopefully sharing information that will help you raise your level as well. So it's been a pleasure being here to talk to you guys. Really appreciate it. I feel terrible about the internet connection I've experienced today, but hopefully it's come across well.
Well, once again, the internet was perfect on our end. You didn't drop out at all that one time.
Awesome.
So it's just on your end. So thanks so much. And do you want to hit anything else before we sign off? Yeah. Oh, once again, if you're going to be at NNC next week, please look us up. Come and find. Whoa, sorry. I think Dustin's playing the video. I don't think I hit that.
Oh, go for it.
Sorry. So if you're, we were playing a little cartoon.
I thought I was on the wrong page. My mistake.
If you're going to be at Annecy in Annecy, France next week, then look us up. Come find us. If the weather holds out, we'll probably do a drawing session out on the park by the lake, and that could be a lot of fun. If not, we'll probably be in a bar drinking somewhere. So
there you go.
Right.
That's the real reason to go.
That's right. So anyway, once again, Marco, thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for being here. We really enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you so much. And everybody go get Marco's class now, creatureartteacher.com/Marco. We'll see you next time.
I hope you enjoy, guys. Enjoy, and we'll do this again. Talk to you soon.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.